What is going on, guys? Welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking to the new assistant coach for UT Austin. His resume with Berkeley says it all. This is the episode back in July. I finally got to finish it. Welcome, Mohamad Saatara.
And I can't go on, I can't go on like this, just dwelling on it. Used to be, I can fix these halls and patch these walls, but there's no patching.
Let's get straight into the episode, guys.
How did we get to that point of this position?
Well, I mean, I wasn't looking to move from Berkeley, but I've had people talk to me over the last, I don't know, 5-10 years, just different jobs opening up, and I just looked at it and evaluated and see if it's a good move or, does it fit what I want to do, etc. And this year just happened to align with what it was a better upward move, so I was like, hey, let's go, So I always try to take a really objective view of things, check the feelings at the door and look at the bottom line basically and what's the best thing to do. And if it meets that criteria, then you go on, you move on. But I think a lot of coaches will just jump around because it's like, oh, this is better, whatever, and you end up in a bad spot. But I think with Texas, it was like so much better, in the terms of infrastructure, ability to recruit, team cultures, and high performance and all that business. So it just fit the bill better. So I was like, okay, time to. And I had done pretty much what I could do at Berkeley. It was maxed out. You're a world record holder, multiple NCAA champs, things like that. Then you're just kind of like, well, you can't really get anywhere else from there. You've maxed out your resources, and then you move on to another place that's got more resources and see what you can do there. So that's how I decided.
So when it comes to, let's say, like the world records and all the achievements, does your mind kind of like want to stay and kind of like see where else you could go from there? Or are you just seeing like, oh, where can I go now? Like, what is next?
I mean, that's a good question. When you're in competitive sports, there's always another hill to climb or another mountain to climb or whatever, however you want to say it. So it's like you don't necessarily change your athletes. You keep you work with the same athletes, especially with track and field. Progress takes years. It's not like an overnight type of deal. It's like some of the sports. Like people watch, like football or basketball or something like that. They put a great team together. They're good for like 2-3 years, and then some other guys come in. With track and field, it's not necessarily a team sport. And at the collegiate setting, it is. But you got to develop those athletes over time. So you and the athlete become the team, basically. So once you get to you get to a particular level, then you sit down and look at it and say, okay, well, what do we got to do better to go to the next step, whatever it is, and you just evolve with that. If you don't, you just get stagnant, and then somebody passes you up. So it's a continuous process of like trying to like find better ways to do things, more efficient, new ideas, keep it going, that kind of thing. So that's how that works. Yeah.
So when you talked about how you can get stagnant and people pass you up, how do you what is your advice to those athletes and the people that they grew early, they had that early success, and then after a while, everyone kind of catches up to them and they find themselves kind of in this, like, I'm not that guy anymore situation?
Well, there's two parts to it. There's a mental part where you always have to challenge yourself. I mean, if you got to a level early on, you have to say, okay, well, what's the next? Who's in front of me? I think a lot of people will get really good early on, young athletes especially, like guys and girls come out of school or whatever, and they're doing some amazing things. They're like, oh, I'm really good, I can do stuff. And then people start catching up to you, and you sort of you're comfortable. You get comfortable with something, you get stagnant with it, and you're kind of like, well, I'm really good at this, and I'm just gonna kind of float, Mm-hmm. And what you got to do is you got to constantly say, okay, well, who was in front of me? Whether it's current athletes or historical achievements, whatever it is, So like you sort of say, like, well, I'm let's just say, like, hey, I'm a state record holder in whatever, steeplechaser. I don't know, just pick an event, I guess. I'm a throw scorer, stuff like in the throws or something like that. I'm the state record holder in the hammer throw. Well, what's the national record? Let me go after that one. You get the national record, and it's like, what's the world record or what's the championship record, whatever it is you're going to. Let's go after that one. And you just kind of keep moving the goalposts for yourself, so you don't get stuck in a one level. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
when you're competing, you're competing against other people, but you're also competing against yourself. And I think that goes for any sport. Like your basketball player, I scored 40 points in a game. That's my best. Let me go next time and score 45 points or whatever it is. And you just keep that building up. If you don't, yeah, sure, you'll be you get as I think as an athlete and a coach, if you get comfortable with what you're doing, then you become stagnant. So you always have to be some kind of, I guess you could put like a pressure gradient of sorts, where it's like you got to go forward. You got to move forward. Find a way to move forward. That's that's how you deal with that. It's hard. It's not easy, but if you want to be good, then nothing's easy. no
Yeah.
one's no one's giving away medals. I wish they did. That'd be a lot easier, but they don't. You got to go
Hmm.
get it. So you know that's the way to do it.
And like, yeah, a lot of people, they'll have that one, like some will say the one hit wonder kind of situation where they had that big moment and they live off of that for like the rest of their time of being an athlete. And then they kind of just like nothing really matters anymore when it comes to the future, when they like have that moment that they keep going back on and they keep going back on.
Yeah, I think. I mean, yeah, that's hard because when you think about it, you do something really big or something historic, type of deal, and it's a huge performance. The one that comes to mind is like Bob Beamon in the Mexico games. He set the long jump world record of just astronomical. I think it didn't even nobody really came close except I think Carl Lewis, but then what's his name? Mike Powell broke the record in a competition they had. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but the long jump competition at the 1991 World Championships in Tokyo. I mean, they were going back and forth. It was insane, just incredible competition. And for like Bob Beamon hit that big jump of his, and throughout his career, he sort of kind of like never. I mean, when you do something like that, that's so far out of the range of like
Yeah.
normal performance. But there's things you can get better at. You can increase your average. So let's say if you jump the world record 8 meters and whatever it was, and your average is like 8 meters, I'm going to get my average up to closer to that. Maybe I won't be able to like overcome it, but I'll push myself to get closer to that astronomical performance. But
Mhm.
if you sort of just kind of like I did it and I'm just going to cruise it, yeah, then you get in trouble. You always have to have
So,
that sense of urgency. You always have that
yeah.
sense of like, hey, somebody's breathing down your back, whether it's an actual competitor or the history books, the statistics or whatever it is. You got to find something to get the blood flowing. You know what I mean? Get the juices
Mhm.
going. That kind of thing. So yeah, it's a constant process all the time.
Because when you do that big achievement, people are watching you. You inspire people, and when you inspire someone, they either want to be just as good as you or they want to be even better. So
Yeah,
that's where like,
there's always somebody somewhere that sees you do something, right? And they go to their lab or whatever you want to call it, their field or whatever it is, and they'll start like, hey, I want to get that guy or get that girl, whatever it is, and they're getting ready. You don't know, you might not even know about them, and then you'll meet them in competition somewhere, and they'll beat you, and you're like, where the hell did this guy come from? And to defend against that is you always have to think there's somebody chasing you. You may know who it is, or you may not know who it is, or whatever. It doesn't really matter. There's always somebody chasing you, so you want to stay ahead of that at all times. So whatever you do, get just a little bit better. You don't have to, you don't have to increase by like 50% or something like that. You just have to get like 1% better, 2% better, whatever it is. Just keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. I mean, obviously, at some point you get older, and you start losing your physical abilities over time. That's just going to happen. But until the time that you can get going, you just keep moving up until you reach your peak. But if you sort of get complacent, that's when things get bad. So
mhm.
that's a big deal. Yeah. If we're business, I mean, if you're a businessman or something, you're running a business. People want to. There's competitive environment, right? So you always have to get a little bit better.
So when it comes to that about getting better, for a lot of people, they don't understand that getting better doesn't mean like, oh, I'm constantly breaking my record times. I'm constantly doing this, doing that. Like these big moments that it's an everyday process. That's like these small little improvements,
Yeah, a little
and
bit
that.
here, a little bit there. Get your averages up a little bit. Just get your average up a little bit. Did you? I mean, here's the thing. Uh, nothing's success isn't guaranteed. Okay, failure is guaranteed. You're gonna
Mhm.
fail. That's gonna happen, whether you want to or not. That failure is gonna come. But success is never guaranteed because you can't control other people. You can control what you do. That's about it. But you can do things to increase the likelihood of success. So, like, if I'm performing, I mean, like throwing events in track and field, if I'm performing and my PR is like so far ahead of what I normally do, is what I can, maybe I can't push up that PR too much. They say world record holder. I mean, world record basically means no one has ever thrown further than that ever. And that's the thing that I don't think like a lot of lay people get that. You know, they're always looking for world records. I mean, when you talk about a world record, that's something that no one has ever done before. Like it's never happened, and it just happened. You know, like think about it. Usain Bolt running like 9.5 in the Olympic Games. That's crazy. You know what I mean? That is so crazy, so fast. So does it mean that he's gonna have to go the next race and run like 9.4? That's probably not gonna happen because you just did something that's so beyond the realm of. But his average race was 9.7 something, and he reduced that over time. You know, so the average is you can do that. So you can if you increase your average performance, the likelihood of having this monster performance increases. But it's just a likelihood of it. You know, you can't guarantee like hey, if you increase your average performance by half a percent, a quarter of a percent, it doesn't sound like pretty big, does it? Quarter percent is nothing. But if you look at the actual numbers that come out of that, those are pretty crazy. And I think that's where for just a layperson, it it doesn't make sense. That's why they look at it and say like, "Oh my God, we need to see more world records." It's like, well, yeah, but those are world records. That means like think about it. Like track and field's been around. The modern version of it's been around since around 1900. So it's been around for about 140, 50 years or something like that. They've done this sport for a long, long time, and the rules haven't really changed much. I mean, there's been technology improvements, with better shoes, tracks, implements, whatever. Pole vault, like you can think about pole vault's an easy example. They went from like bamboo poles to steel poles to fiberglass to carbon fiber. So that some of the technology is going to help your performances, but the one thing that doesn't change is the performance itself. So, like for example, with the pole vault, if you go back and look at the what's his name? Guy's name is from Fresno, Warhammer or something was his name. He was the first guy to jump like 15 feet in the pole vault. And you look at his technique when he was jumping, and you look at the technique of like Mondo Duplantis now, he's the world record holder. He's just smashing the world records now left and right. It's not that much different. There's things that obviously with the new poles and stuff you have different technical stuff, but the idea is that the basics, the structure hasn't changed. So when you say world record, you're talking about like 150 years of history, hundreds of thousands
Mm-hmm.
of people doing the sport. So that kind of thing. So but to get better, you can increase your averages. When you have a high average, you're almost nobody can defeat you if you come in and replicate your performances and under any conditions. Whatever, rain, shine, good stadium, bad stadium, officials, whatever, just you name it, things go haywire all over the place. If you can perform under those conditions and improve your averages, then you increase your likelihood of success. And that's pretty much all you can really do. You increase your likelihood of success, performance goes up, everything gets better, and you're off to the races. You know,
So, what is the biggest thing that really happens when you get these new athletes? What is like the big mental block that some of them have that you see countless times?
I think I don't. I think the mental side and the physical side are connected. Okay, so people like to divide things up into like, well, that's the mental preparation, and that's the physical preparation, or whatever. They're connected. They're deeply connected. I mean, they're like this. So if you're preparing an athlete physically, you're also preparing them mentally. So that's like when you bring somebody in, you go through a process of training, teaching them what you need, and training is teaching basically. You're teaching someone to do something. Now their body and their brain and everything else adjust, the nervous system, all that stuff, musculature, all that stuff will adjust, it will adapt. But as you put him through that training process, you're also teaching him how to deal with challenges and whatever else is going on in that same process. And I think to be a successful like developmental coach, and I think at all levels is developmental. Whether you're a super elite, professional football player playing for the I don't know like New England Patriots and winning like all the Super Bowls, or you're some high school kid that just comes out as a freshman football doesn't know left from right. It's all development. You're developing someone to do something. You know what I mean? Or in track and field, you could get somebody that's a walk on kid that just walks in off the street, tries to join your team, or a highly recruited athlete that's got big scholarships and all that stuff. You're developing those people. So if you separate the mental and the physical, then it becomes challenging. But if you integrate them together, it's like, hey, I'm teaching you to do this because you're going to run into this situation in 6 months, or if we're going to get ready for a competition, or if we're getting ready for something going on, we're going to have to deal with these challenges. And if you know that up front, then you know how to deal with it. And I think the mental part comes into play when they get blocks, like you said, mental blocks and things like that, because they haven't. The athlete hasn't been challenged to consider those challenges. And then yeah, sure, you develop some mental blocks or whatever, because you're like, if it's something that's like, hey, we're gonna do this. This is what we're gonna deal with. This is the way it is. We got to deal with it. We gotta develop ourselves to deal with it. And you get a. Oh, sorry, my thing is like sliding here. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Yeah. So like you just deal with it, and you it just becomes part of your what's it called, your ethos, I guess. It's like, hey, I'm gonna go to this. I'm gonna go to the Olympic Games. I'm gonna walk in the stadium. There's gonna be like 100,000 people, and the official is gonna be weird, and I gotta go sit under the stadium for an hour and a half before I get released to go out there. And I warmed up like 2 hours ago, and whatever's going on. And if you just know that's what's coming, that's what you're gonna be dealing with. It's gonna be easier. But once you get there, like, well, I knew about this like 5 years ago. So I've had 5 years to get my head wrapped around it and get myself oriented to what I'm going to be dealing with. And if you start off front with that, it doesn't turn into a mental block. It's just something else that you got to deal with. It makes it less traumatic, I guess you could say. I don't know what a word to use. And I think the mental blocks usually come from not integrating the challenges with your preparations. You know what I mean? That's a big deal. If you know, hey, we're getting ready for the NCAA championships. This is the way NCAA championship is going to run. This is the way you're going to feel. This is the way This is what you're going to see. This is, the people you're going to be around. This is what they're going to do, whatever it is. If you bring that into the equation right out, initially they okay, look, we're going to do all this stuff to be ready for this stuff. And if it's upfront, I think that helps a lot in terms of like dealing with all the anxiety and blocks and I don't know, whatever else is going on, because they're like, okay, I know what's going to happen. You might have to work at it a little bit up front, but once it becomes sort of your operating procedures, then it's just part of the game. Don't make a big deal out of things. Don't make a big deal out of big things, I guess you could say, or something like that. If it's just something that you got to deal with, you deal with it.
No, when you start thinking, that's when it starts falling apart a lot of times.
Yeah, no, that's sorry about that. I just got a thing.
Oh, you're good.
No, that's okay. That's sort of like where we I think if you look at the elite coaches, I don't know if you ever have time to do that, but if you go to a competition like I don't know, U.S. championships, world championships, NCAA championships, whatever championship you go to, you'll see the elite coach, like the guys that have had a lot of people at the elite level. You see how they're coaching their athletes. There's not a lot of instruction. There's not a lot of like, oh my God, you got to do this, you got to do that, whatever. It's very simple things. Whereas when you see the younger coaches that are just getting there, or younger athletes that are just getting there, there's a lot of talking. There's a lot of coaching on-field coaching going on, and that goes from being in a competitive state into a training state, or like a learning state. And if you're trying to learn during a major competition, that's really hard to do, because now you're divided. Your attention's divided. You can't focus on what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I remember a lot of times they used to tell us that practice is the time to learn, and that when the game starts, you can't learn anymore. Either you know how to do it or you don't, and that's
You have
what
to
practice is
react.
all
Yeah,
about. Yeah.
you have to be proactive, reactive. Whatever sport you're doing. If you know what you're doing, you're gonna go do it. If you don't know what you're doing, then yeah, you got problems. You
Hmm.
know, this is what just think about watching. What I was just watching recently, NBA Finals. That the teams were playing. It was at Indiana and somebody else was playing, and the one team was winning. And in the beginning, there wasn't much going on with the coaches. They were just kind of like, okay, let's just play. They're playing and they're doing whatever they're doing. And the one team started like messing up a lot, and the coaches like overcoat. They just yelling and screaming like, "Hey, get in your post position." I don't know whatever you can hear on TV. The guys yelling and screaming and cursing and all that stuff, and you're kind of like, well, something broke down along the way. You didn't consider the particular outcome that was going to happen. You weren't ready for it, so now all of a sudden you're adjusting on the fly. And I guess a big thing is to be able to adjust on the fly. But when things break down, now you're going from that active state to like the reactive, and you're in trouble.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're going off the
it's
back foot.
yeah.
But
It gets ugly real quick. you know.
yeah, because you're just reacting to everything they're doing, so they're in control.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk us. You already mentioned it a bit, but witnessing a world record, like how does everything kind of like unfold into that? Is it just more like, yeah, I knew this, like I knew it was gonna be a great outcome because we worked hard, like, especially like you with a student,
Yeah.
or like that kind of thing? Like, oh, I expected something great to happen here. Like, because I feel
Well,
like this time when you know, like something's about to happen.
yeah, looking at the training and looking at how they're getting ready and everything else, the practice and the results that you're producing in your training, like something's going to happen. But when it does happen, there's no way to describe it. It's indescribable. It's amazing just to see like the actual event take place, and the athlete perform at that level. It is indescribable. It is just it's amazing, and you 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 it's that's the only way I can explain it. It's amazing. You just see it and you're like, oh wow, that just happened. And it doesn't matter. I mean, all the results from training and everything that's going to happen, and but once you're in the middle of it, you're sort of like, holy crap, we just did that. It hits you different. I don't know. It's hard to explain. You just see somebody do something that you worked for, and it just you brought it to fruition, and you're like, okay. And then I guess it's a quick thing because right after that you're thinking, okay, what's the next thing we got to do? You get a moment,
Mm.
you take that in, you enjoy it, you go through all the emotions and stuff like that, and then you just okay, what's the next thing? Let's get going, let's get back into it and get after it.
You know, got more eyes now. More people are gonna
Yeah,
be coming for you. Like we said earlier,
yeah.
people see it.
You
They're
got a bigger
inspired.
target on you. You got a bigger target on your
Mhm.
back. So it's just a race. So you just keep going.
Mhm. So this came to my mind during that when we talked about targets and all that. When it comes to like trash talk, how do you like talk to your athletes about going along with that? What is your view on it?
My view is always like people are gonna do what they're gonna do. You can't control them. They can talk trash. They can do all sorts of stuff. I've had athletes in competition and athletes tell them all sorts of crazy stuff, and I just say, you know what, let your performers do the talking for you, because that's the best way to shut that down. If somebody's you know it's either by their like your body language or whatever. Somebody gets a big throw and like, yeah, I got you now, whatever, and it's a yelling, screaming, and jumping around and stuff. But then if you go in and respond right away, that's a really huge advantage you have, because you didn't say anything, you just went and did it.
Hmm.
And for your competitor, for your opposition to see that knocks them off their game. Because part like in the throwing events, there's you're in direct competition, right? But you're not like physically engaging with anybody. Like in a team sport, like a basketball or football or something, you're physically engaging with somebody. You're moving a guy out of the way, or you're passing against them, or you're going around them, or whatever. In track and field, outside of like the distance events, there's no physical contact so I guess like I'm not saying like you're hitting people or whatever, but like let's say if you're a distance runner, you're in a race, you're running in the pack or whatever. Somebody's going to get in front of you and slow down or speed up or whatever. That's like direct interaction, right? But
Mm.
with throwing events, field events, there's no direct interaction like that. But your performance, there's direct interaction with your performance. Like somebody throws, let's say I'm coaching Cameron at a competition. Let's say like in Prefontaine, the recent competition that was in Eugene, Oregon, the 50th anniversary of the Prefontaine Classic. Um, One young lady was throwing better than Cameron. She was in second place going to like the finals, and we just talked to her quick and say, "Listen, you got to step it up." And she through a personal best, and she was ready for it. She was just kind of a little bit tight in the beginning, and I said, "Okay, just we worked on this. Go do what you worked on. Take care of business." And that made a big difference because she came in and she asserted her power on another athlete by her performance. And there's tactics and strategy to that. I'll give you an example. There's a man by the name of Yuri Sadiq. He was a world record holder. He just recently passed away a couple of few years ago, but he had won a lot of major championships. He had never won a world championship, I don't think. And in 1991 in Tokyo, I think he was probably in his late 30s now at the time. So he's pretty much past his prime, well past his prime. And he was on the Soviet team. And I think it's probably one of the last times the Soviet team competed as the Soviets. They became the unified team afterwards. But there was two other guys on the Soviet team that were way better than he was physically. They were throwing way further. They were just better, younger, more explosive, better technique, all that stuff. And I was really fortunate and blessed to have a conversation with them over a few years. And I asked him about that. I'm like, how did you win that competition? Those guys were better than you. He said, I knew I knew I was gonna be, they were gonna outperform me in the physical side because they were just younger and better. But he said, he had competed in a lot of Olympic Games, World Championships, all sorts of competitions. I mean, he set the world record at the European Championships in 1986. He said, I just needed to produce a result in the first round or two.
Mhm.
Not a big result, just enough to challenge them a little bit, and they would just get in their head because they're young and they're not inexperienced. And I could get an advantage like that, and that was his one shot. And it just so happened by luck, I guess, that he was the first thrower of the competition, and he went in and threw a throw of about 81 meters and maybe 70 or 50 or something like that. And for those guys, it wasn't a huge throw, but the young guys saw that and they started pressing. Their technique broke down, and he ended up winning a world championship. You know, he wasn't physically the best athlete, but tactically he was the best athlete. So there's tactics too. Is how do you assert your ability into that competition to influence your perform your competitors. So there's a part of that. I got another story for you. I was coaching Cameron Rogers her senior year, and there was a young lady from UCLA, and she ended up transferring to Texas State with her coach John Frazier. And we were talking about the season with Cameron around probably around, I don't know, October, November, something like that. We go over the season. And I always do that with all my athletes. We go over the season and see what's coming up, so you know what you're going to get yourself into. And I said, hey, listen, Alyssa Wilson is going to come in, and her coach John Frazier was on the UCLA team when I guess this is kind of throwing history, so I probably did some research on it. But he was on the UCLA team when John Brenner beat Michael Carter. Michael Carter is the greatest, probably one of the greatest high school track and field athletes of all time. He's the only guy that's won an Olympic medal and an NFL Super Bowl in the same year. Okay, so yeah, his high school record still stands, and the shot is 81 feet. It's astronomical. It's one of the greatest records in high school history in the U.S. And in college, he was undefeated until his senior year. So Brenner beat him, broke the NCAA record and beat him at the NCAA championships. I think it was 1983 or 84, something like that, and or maybe 85. I don't remember. But Frazier was on the team then, and then he was also in Los Angeles when John Godina from UCLA broke the NCAA record and beat Brett Noon. And Brett Noon was also undefeated. And he was, I think, 5-time NCAA champion and all that stuff, and the shot. And I told Cameron, I said, listen, Alyssa's coach knows how to beat defending champions. And then the senior Cameron's senior year, she was two-time NCAA champion at the time, at the NCAA record. I'm like, listen, they know how to beat and they know how to take down defending champions because he's been around it. He knows how to do that mentally and physically and all that stuff. So Alyssa's coming for you. So the competition is actually going to start because she was out of the Pac-12, so we didn't have the Pac-12 to go against her. I'm like, your competition is going to start at the NCAA round one qualification round. So you need to put a performance in. And I told her, I said, Alyssa's going to come in. I mean, Cameron had the NCAA round one record, qualification record. She's going to break your qualification record, and she's going to start putting pressure on you, so you start tightening up and getting, put you under the, start squeezing you. So it forces you to come out of your performance procedures. And so I said, what we got to do is we got to go to regionals. They used to call it regionals because of my region, but it's round one. They call it round one now. So we went to Arkansas, and sure enough, it just happened that Alyssa was throwing before Cameron did. First round, Alyssa goes in, throws like 72 meters and change, breaks or maybe 73, I don't know what it was. And she breaks the qualification record, right? And then the announcer's going crazy, and everyone's like, oh my God, they broke the record, whatever. And Cameron got up. I said, like, you need to take your throw right now. Take it, and Cameron's a great competitor the way she is. She came in and broke the NCAA record. So we're like, okay, the game's afoot. Now the game starts. And this is like 2 weeks before the NCAA championships. This is the qualifying round. So they were already competing in the qualifying round. And when we got to Eugene, Alyssa broke the American collegiate record. The NCAA keeps track of two types of records. Well, not NCAA, but like track and field news. You got the American collegiate record, so American athlete does it, collegiate athlete does it, and then the overall record if it's a foreign athlete. And Cameron happens to be from Canada, so she has an NCAA record. So Alyssa broke the U.S. collegiate American collegiate record at 74 and change. And Cameron was in the lead by she had thrown over 75 meters. It was still outside of Alyssa's range of performance because she had thrown a PR to get close to her. And Cameron was a little bit tight, so trying to force the throws. And I told her, I said, like in either in round 4 or 5, you need to do something that's outside of a range. And she responded again. We had prepared for that specific situation. She broke the NCAA record again at the NCAA championships and was able to end up winning 3 national championships and set the collegiate record at the NCAA championships. So that's one of the things I teach my athletes is to throw your best at the major championship, because that way no one can question it. If you go to a small meet somewhere and break a record, people can always say, well, it was the officiating wasn't good, or the field was downhill, or I don't know, whatever you want to call it. They pulled the tape a little bit too loosely, or I don't know what. It's weird stuff. But if you do it at a major championship in front of everyone, no one can question it. So whatever performance you have will stand as in like, this is what you did in a major championship, and that's really important. I think that part of getting the athletes ready for that, that's how you do it.
Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. That was actually really interesting to hear, just about like when you hear like two people that are at that level going at it, like you understand like the levels to it. When you work hard, you get big results. And like you said, like y'all would work hard, and that's what comes out of it.
Yeah, well, it's more working smart than working hard because everybody works hard. You get to that level, there is no one that doesn't work hard. I think a lot of the perception is, oh, this guy worked harder than this other guy and he beat him. In some cases, that may be true if someone's not working at their optimum. But if once you get to elite level, everyone's working at their optimum. They don't leave a stone unturned to get better. You know what I mean? So the working hard part of it is just a given. That's just like you play, what is it, Texas Hold'em or something like that. That's the buy-in. That's your buy-in right there. Like you put your $5 in. That's your buy-in. If you're not working hard, you're not going to get there. So it's just being smart about what you're doing and how you're preparing. Putting your energies in more productive ways than other. Just wasting time, I guess you can say. And I think that's the one thing that it's interesting. I see that a lot in commentary on professional sports. Oh, that guy's lazy, or that guy is no good, or that. People say that, and it's like, no, they're going at what they can do. They're at their maximum work effort. There's probably 5 people on earth that can be like lazy and be good at what they're doing. That's that's not the norm. Everybody's working their butt off. They're working hard. So it's just how can you find the edge? How can you find that little lever that you can push to get yourself in front of everybody else? Because when you look at the physical attributes of elite athletes, it doesn't matter what sport, what event, they're just about the same. When you get to that level of like human performance and that kind of stuff, I mean, people are pretty much maxed out on what they can do. So it's not like one person is better at this or that. And they have things they're better at. There's things that they're worse at, but it's just finding that little lever, that little edge, whatever you can find, little toothpick that you can use to just push yourself one millimeter further than everybody else to get that best result that you're looking for. So yeah, it's more application of force rather than just force. Like working hard. It's not just working hard. It's just how's the hard work go, where is the hard work going? That's more like that's probably more appropriate way of describing that. So yeah.
That was good.
Yeah.
Anyways, I appreciate it, man. We hit the limit here.
Yeah, no
But,
problem, man.
yeah, thank you for coming on. I know
Absolutely,
that it's
man.
probably
Enjoy it,
busy time
yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
Best of luck over there.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you taking time to talk to me, man. I do appreciate it.
Of course.
Thank you.
Burning memories till there's nothing but ash. I'm starting fresh